was going by, and he pulled in and parked right in front of us at that time. And he walked back, and I was real happy because I thought, oh, we'll get another witness here. And it was pretty nice. And so he walked back, and I was just ready to take this fantastic picture. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a beautiful picture because I could see the windows and it over the freeway, and it just proved that UFOs exist.
Welcome back to another in conversation on breaking the silence. And today we have the head of the experiencer research team from Richard Banasiak. Did I get that right?
It's Banasiak. It happens all the time.
Banasak. Banasak.
I mutilate CJ Arabia's last name all the time, and I have to apologize to her too. So no
Oh,
problem.
I'm sorry.
The other thing too is I appreciate the promotion for being the head of the ERT, but I'm just one of their blessed members to be a part of that. George obviously is the
Oh,
head.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's
so he
that's
is.
right.
Yeah, he's our leader, and I'm happy to be a part of his team.
He's a great man. He
He
really is.
is very nice man.
He's very kind and very passionate about this subject. And to come from being a medical doctor and a pitcher for the New York Yankees, it's
Absolutely,
you
yes.
can't write this stuff
No, no, and
except
then
in X Files.
the interest, like you said, the thing about it too about this particular subject, it crosses all. I mean, it's all about all of us. It's everywhere and anywhere. So anyway.
Yeah, it is. So, Richard, how did this all begin for you? Where did it start for you that you noticed something in the sky or you took an interest in this subject so deeply as you have?
Well, it was funny, and I know only I have to apologize. I only know certain things about your work, and so my actually interest started when I was a little kid back in Syracuse, New York, and I watched this weird show every day. I think it was on about 3 o'clock. It was called Star Trek, and so as a kid who 7, 8 years old, and just everything that was happening with the space program, and I got caught up in it, and so I have to apologize. I'm going to sort of geek out a little bit because I'm glad that you had some. So I have my Spock uh, plate here. You're gonna like this.
Oh,
You're like this too because I also have my phaser. And so again, they're all obviously models of things that we just enjoy. But I will tell you, one of my favorite is this tricorder,
right,
and it actually still works. All with the batteries are not there, but
right.
again, that you asked what my point is it's from that point, and then of course your own life. We're always seeking for understanding and who we are and you know just the possibilities, and so that's actually where I got my start. And so I was very blessed with that. I grew up mostly in around a lot of sort of Catholic religious and those sort of things. But my life was a kind of different. I was taken away from my family when I was 7. And that actually, this is what we've learned about people who are experiencing abduction or contact with, you know, when you experience trauma, and again, that sort of puts you in a position of thinking deeply about who you are, what you
Yeah.
mean, what things are. So anyway, that's really where my foundation is. And then when I got into policing, I was in law enforcement for 35, 36 years, starting back in 1985.
Wow.
Was in the military in 79, but when parole and probation officer, I was a border patrolman, and I'm a retired police captain. Um,
Wow. I
and
did
so,
not know that.
my experience, to be honest with you, Steve, has really been just this explorer and investigator of just things, and with the experiences that I had as a kid, we question everything: God, why me, or what's happening, or especially if a youngster at 7, 8 and you're not with people were your family, you sort of internalize a lot of things and you start thinking too much, and sometimes that can help or not help. But anyway, throughout my life in New York and going to Miami, I was fascinated by the paranormal. In New York and Miami, of course, the Bermuda Triangle. I started reading incessantly when I was 13 and 14 years old. Again, maybe it was my way of trying to understand or, get away from the things that were happening in my life outside. And
Mhm.
and sure, I feel or believe I've seen anomalous things. I will tell you, I don't ever really believe that I've can remember any contact or experiences. I do believe I've seen some pretty anomalous things, whatever that means.
Mhm.
And so, because of that, I've always had a yearning for knowledge. Not only, to be honest with you, Steve, um, all areas. I'm one of those people. So, some of my own experiences in religion and the Catholicism, pre-religion stuff when I was going to college, Hermetic stuff, um, just the different alchemy related things about who we are and our spirit. Yesterday we did a recording on the Fatima incident of 1917, the Lady of Fatima. So I mean, it's that sort of thing. So
Sure.
mine's mostly been through others' experience. And so when I retired from law enforcement in Southern California with the Indio Police Department, I've always had a passion for, I'm an avid reader, an avid experiencer. Um, I like and enjoy a lot of things related to the psychic or spiritual aspects, and so that's really been my uh, my passion. So my wife got me involved in MUFON. I had finished.
Huh.
I had finished after, as you know, with people in my field. After I finished law enforcement, retired. I did. I obtained a security clearance, a top secret security clearance, and I did what's called security background uh, investigations on people who were seeking positions with top secret or secret background. So I had some experience in that. And then we got my father-in-law passed, and we got this ranch over in Colton, between Colton and Loma Linda, and we have animals and all that. But my wife wanted me to continually do something, as you know, people like you and I and others who are always trying to do something, who are always busy. And so she knew I had a passion for MUFON, so she got me a membership for my birthday, and I
Huh.
said, okay, whatever. And then I started doing cases. And I will have to tell you, and I wasn't sure because I didn't know if I wanted to be a part of that organization, especially coming from another. But I met somebody that was pretty interesting. And I'll have to be honest with you, from my background, he was a character. He's one of those characters of life that, um, Earl Grey Anderson. And
Yes.
when when we started talking, I came from a very conservative, policing background and all that kind of stuff. And, meeting a person like Earl, uh, have to be honest with you, and especially people in MUFON, me trying to understand it from the outside until I got on the inside, to be honest with you. But, Earl, Earl was such a gentle spirit and a very positive spirit. And he was sort of flowery and animated, and just the way
And
he
a rock and roller.
rock and roller. So you know
Yep.
what? It was funny. The first, so this is about 2021, 2020, 2021. He gave me like, because he knew you're the police detective. You're my detective. He used to call me, but before you knew it, he gave me 120 cases, over a period of time. But he just, you go do it, you go figure it out. And I know what he was doing
You go
because,
figure it out.
well, no, he was the
Yeah.
type of guy,
No,
he could do that in his sleep.
it's joyful
Yeah, and so he
to
just,
hear.
here's your, cut your teeth on this stuff, and I knew I had to cut my teeth on this stuff. It's a different type of investigation. And then he said, "Hey, you know what? I like the work that you did, and I appreciate this," because he was a mentor in that field. And he
Yeah.
said, "Why don't you do ERT work?" And I said, "Okay." And I looked at it, and ERT and even that whole subject is one of those ones that we're all having difficulty in the bigger world about do we want to go into abductions? Do we want to go into contact? Do we want to go into that friend science? Do
Mhm.
we want to go into consciousness? Do we want to go into spiritual aspects, as opposed to let's just stay with nuts and bolts? And I did, and he gave me a number of cases. I was very blessed. He sent me one, and he said, "Richard, I know about this case. It's got some qualities to it, but in our work we have to decide." So he said, "Why don't you look at this one? The lady thinks she's seen rabbits in the middle of the road, and see what you can make of it." And so when I interviewed Susan Alloway, where for about a month over a number of days, and we talked, and I wrote up had to have been a 4-page summary of the case, and Earl saw it and it was like, holy moly, where'd this come from? And because in policing,
Yes.
you try to do, this is the thing I like about MUFON, to be honest with you, and our own work that we do. It's science based, but the other aspect of it is it's very based on people, and being policing and work like that. I really believe in talking to people. The only living witness, and I don't want to use that as an example because that was Ted Bundy, but the only living witness is and the reality is the person who's experienced what they experienced.
That's very
And,
true.
and so I had to learn that. Aaron Earl said, listen, it's not like policing, especially with ERT. You could do that with the sightings because it's a fact-based science. But when you get into this idea about people who've had encounters, it's a different world. And, what they say and what they do, you'll be able to judge because you've interviewed people. I mean, those who are maybe, stretching things or you'll be able to differentiate. And so when I
Yeah,
found,
you can tell. You can, I don't
yeah,
know why, but you just can. Yeah.
well, you can, because I mean, this is how I learned it in policing. So we know what normal is, right? And we
Yeah.
use the guidelines of normal, and then all of a sudden we're able to see, well, that's not normal. And then if you go down that road and there's like some consistencies, and there's a consistencies across the board, then there's something there. This is what Dr. John Mack said. John Mack says he didn't what? And then all of a sudden he was finding stories and correlations between professors, doctors, military people that had no reason to either fabricate or make it up. And then there was all this psychological. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't tell my kids. I didn't tell my
Yeah.
family. And
Nothing to gain.
it was just fascinating. And then, of course, the other thing that you do as an investigator, and I'm sure you do too, we have our own interactions with what we call consciousness and what we call spirit and what we call whatever. And then all of a sudden, when your dreams or your daydream or you get this deja vu or you see, hear things, and then they come, people calling, all the things that happen as as an aspect of who we are centrally in terms of sensors. Everybody has all those capabilities. A lot of them are dormant. A lot of them are turned down so much because the noise of the physical world. But this is what I learned more too, not only in the spiritual aspect and the religious aspect growing up, but now we're having it in this idea of the people who have been either encounters, a lot of encounters with whoever that is and whatever they are, and we all have our own thoughts and feelings, and they're all probably accurate, but it validates even more of our own spirituality and our own sense of consciousness. And to me, I'll be honest with you, it's opened up a whole other aspect of who you are. Once you dive into that and you dive into your own self, meditation, all of a sudden, there's so much more in addition to our physical manifestation and our physical life, which is important too, because that's how we experience things as an energy person. So I did Susan's, and we were blessed enough to have it be one of the cases of the year in 2024 at the MUFON Symposium, which Earl and I attended with a lot of my other brothers and sisters from the Southern California MUFON chapter. And we had a great time, and I was blessed to do that. And then, of course, you get involved in other ERT cases, and it's just expanded. So really, that's where I've gone. And of course, since Earl has passed, the last time I saw Earl was this January. we went down and we had a meeting over in Westlake Village. Yeah, is it Westlake Village? Wherever it's at.
At the music center.
Yeah, at the music store,
Yeah,
and we had
that's where I met Dustin
well,
Eskelson. Yeah,
well, Dustin was there too. Dustin came. Were you there the day that we
when
had
I
that?
was there, because that's when I met.
Well, then if you look at his picture, then you're in one. You know what? Now that I think about it, you and I were both there at the same time. If you look at the
Yeah,
picture from Dustin, I'm sitting
yes,
in the back thing. And so I asked Dustin, would he like to come down? I put him in contact with her. Of course, they had a lot of interaction. And that was the last time I saw her. But anyway, this opportunity came up after El Paso because he was doing MUFON contact radio with KGRA. And then, of course, I was blessed enough with CJ Arabia to become the host of the show. And so we've been doing that. And then again, it's another level of giving back, I guess, and of trying to understand and maybe illuminating the light of what's happening. So that's really who I am. I have my,
wow,
my own passion. I'm that one guy that, and it's a religious connotation, but, blessed are those who have not seen but yet believe,
hmm
and believe because of all the things in our history, whether you go to the moon, where you go to the ancients, where you go to the societies or, your own interactions. The answer is all there. It is who we are. And it doesn't matter what people who want to deny themselves, but again, we don't have to prove anything to anybody because this is all
no,
about who we
we
are.
don't, and we know why they want to deny, and I don't take it personally, and I understand it, and it's a shame, but eventually, I think that most people eventually will come around, and but the thing I find so important is when people say, "Oh, come on, that's all bullshit." It's just to
Yeah,
understand that they don't have this experience. Not only do they not have the experience, they have not worked around people who have had the experience, and they're not able to discern when they look into that person's eyes, they can't see what's there. And I'm surrounded with so many experiencers, probably starting with the Vaughn's group back in 1994, and then meeting Whitley that same year, and we become lifelong friends. Um, when they talk about what's happened to them, and you can really see it with Susan, you can just see it in their eyes. You just
and you
know.
can hear it, and there's
Yes, you can hear
validation.
it.
So there's validation in this idea of cooperation because of other experiences that you have. So one of the it's funny, and I want to go back a little bit to my the religious. So also the psychic and the mediums and all that. But so I read a book here recently, and you probably remember the guy Dan Drayson. Do you remember Daniel Drayson? So Daniel Drayson is a guy, and the only reason why I say it, you're going to kick yourself in the butt. You actually did the animation on the documentary that they did in if I'm not mistaken, and you'll call me wrong, in 2001. It was called the Scole Experiment, SCOLE,
Huh.
and your name is on the animation done for the production. Now you may not have known anything about it, but what the story was about is there was four mediums in England and they
Oh
wanted to
yes,
prove what,
yes. I remember. I remember. Yeah,
and
I
it was an
remember that whole case.
incredible story. And again, it's another avenue, if you remember, Steve, it's another avenue of tapping into our senses that everybody calls psychic, but they're not psychic, they're natural. And they were able to show that they could be in a dark room in the basement, nothing there, put a film canister on the table. And when they developed it, and they developed it using standards because there was a study done by two doctors and to show all the evidence, of which I thought was really cool. But I mean, they saw things on there. They saw people who were past. They heard things from people who were past. This connection in terms of energy. And so it was funny when I saw your name. I thought, holy moly! I almost wanted to ask him, does he remember that? The other thing,
Yeah,
thing
I
about
do.
the other thing about the skull thing, I don't know, and you may want to check it because I've done some look at it. There was an apparition of, to be honest with you, I don't know if you remember. It looked like a UFO. It looked like an alien. It was actually in blue on the camera because they finally set down a video camera, and on the video camera is a picture of an alien. And so I wanted to ask you if you remembered any of that, because the picture that you, I mean, the bust that you have, at least on this side where the thing is similar to the blue one with the black guys on the other side.
Okay.
But it's just amazing. And so that was a lot of my work. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just I wanted
That's
to,
all right.
yeah,
Yeah, but thank you for refreshing my memory, because I do. It took a couple more words and then it just came right back to me. I have a pretty good memory, and I back during that time, especially through the '90s up to the early 2000s. I worked on so many TV shows and documentaries. I worked with James Fox on Out of the Blue.
right,
Just everybody was hiring me, including the History Channel on the UFO files, to do CGI work for them. So I kind of had a shoe in because they knew I was an experiencer, and they thought that was kind of a nice, um, a nice marriage of an effects artist and someone who actually gets this phenomenon. But what is true is that these various things you're talking about, they're all connected. They're all one. And there's no doubt about it. In fact, this book here, my friend Simon Bound wrote, Near
right,
Death Experiences, is just absolutely mind boggling. Then there's Susie Henson's book, The Dual Soul Connection. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend that book. That book just
right,
flabbergasted me, and I'm in touch with her. But what we're all finding within this group, this community, and breaking the silence of experiencers, is that all these things are connected. Near death experiences, having encounters with loved ones who've passed on
right,
before we even knew they had passed. During
right.
the night when they passed, they came to us, and so on and so forth. And you know this, so
Right. One of the things that you just reminded me of, and so there's many good podcasters and good podcast program, but just again, maybe it's a personal thing, but Grant Cameron does a podcast, but he wrote a book about the aspect of music, and it goes into even further the aspect of ideas and creativity about these folks who have been inspired by their encounters, their dreams, the things that they see, the things that they experience in terms of that other state, if you will. It's just like Robert Monroe, his whole idea about the astral world and astral
I
travel.
I studied him and took his course.
And the thing about it, whether it's it's been looked at, the idea about remote viewing, and the reason why I bring the astral travel, the remote viewing, because these have been proven by science. Because sometimes people you talk about, oh, the woo woo stuff, and I can't touch that, and I can't grab my arm around that. So we bring them back to something that's a little bit more mainstream, and then we try to tag them and show them it's all the same thing. It's no different. It's no. One of the stories that I love, and only because I like his phrase, Leonardo da Vinci went to that island, and when he was a kid, very young, and he was sort of missing for 2 years. And then when he came back, he created a lot of pictures and submarines and flying stuff, and they didn't know how he did that. And the idea is he went through some kind of experience as other great artists and people who have been inspired. But it's not just them; it's all of us. And the one thing I remember that Leonardo says, and I'm going to paraphrase, he says there's three kinds of people: those who believe when you show them, and those who don't believe. And I thought that was a pretty profound thing. And you said the thing that you said that was pretty funny, ironic. I don't mean funny. Is
Mhm.
I believe everybody is. Everybody asks, or people ask, what path or what course should I, it really doesn't matter what course. The road leads the same way. It leads to the same place. And whether you get there going this way, that way, or whatever, or you don't experience, you will. You will find
We,
it. You will allow yourself. And that's the only thing I can hope for, that, we're already there. Whether this is just an experience that we're having right now in this adventure that we're having, and we really are who I believe that we are, we're all okay. Everything's okay. There's nothing to worry
yeah,
about.
you're right. We're all consciousness, and
Yes.
like the Gray said to Susan, I am you and you are me.
I'm sitting on a table. Can I touch you? It said yes, standing right here. So I remember touching it and then, just thinking, and I'm not quite sure where that came from, but I smelled my hand afterwards and it was like, oh, that's just gross. And it said, that's not gross. I am you. You are me. We are the same.
We
And
are
I'm
all
gonna
the
tell you,
same.
and I wrote that down because she said once she said, if you remember, she said, "Can I touch you?" Or she
Yeah,
was thinking it.
it's in the film.
Yeah, she was thinking it. She says, I'd like, and he said, "You can touch me." And do you remember? She went over and she went down the arm and she said, "Ooh," and he said to her, "Ooh," and her whole face. She says,
He said he was
"Touching
gross.
your,
Yeah,
you're touching yourself." It said, "What?" And then she got the idea. I am you and you are me. They are us. We are them.
we
And
are
that's
all the
that's
same.
a very significant thing. And I'm gonna be honest with you. When I got to that point in the interview, because when I interviewed, it was one of those profound things because again, these are certain markers, and that's what I look for as an investigator. There's certain markers and indicators that are consistent. And when you go down that road and the way they express it, it validates for me because just like when I did murder investigations and we did missing children and we did bank frauds and all the different variations, those are things that you do. That's a flag. That's a red flag. That's a check. That's a check mark. And it was incredible when she said that. So I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway.
Yeah, and John Lennon wrote in "I Am the Walrus," "I am you and you are me and we are all together." And
It's,
when she said that, we had the camera rolling on her, and when she talked about that, I thought of that, and I could see what she was seeing, and that's why I had the being like right there in her face, and
right.
it leans forward so she could touch it, and
Right.
but I thought about that song of Lennon's, and I just thought, man, that's amazing, because
Yeah.
we're all connected through consciousness, through our spirit, our souls, whatever you want to call it. This energy that is our consciousness that seems to go on forever,
Right. Right.
and
I
that's a
definitely.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing to follow up on that is that we are the same energy, the same consciousness. And the good thing about it is we're like different parts or different ways of that ocean, even though we are the ocean, we're experiencing it our own to bring it back to the whole. And so, I mean, it's almost like for lack of understanding, because I don't understand it completely, not right now anyway. It's like God wanting to experience life, and so whatever that means, and he or she experiences through everything that it is, and so that's just and that's the reason why it's important that they are us, we are them. And in all the golden rules and all the philosophies and all the world that we have, it said the one thing it says, whether it's namaste or all the other things, is you are another aspect of me. I am another
Right.
aspect of you. Love thy neighbor as thyself. This, and it's all kinds of philosophical. That's how
Right.
you know that there's a cohesion and a consistency through it, because that's what you look for in these things. That when somebody who you don't know, doesn't look like you, doesn't have a culture that you, don't even have the music that you do, but they express it the way they are, and yet when they talk about things that are profound, it's the same thing.
Yes, it's true.
It's and that's what Dr. John Mack said, that he it got to him. He said, I got all these people saying the same thing, going through the same, and their trauma. And he was able to measure the trauma neurologically in the brain, and it's like, it sort of, what it did is it validated for me my own thoughts and my own beliefs. And so that's probably really where I am at, in this whole idea. And it's a big philosophy, in terms of who we are. So I've been very blessed about it.
We are the waves, and eventually we return to the sea. So was what was taught to me.
Right.
So
I did. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead. You have something to
No,
say.
no, no.
Go for it.
I was going to go on to some of the different things that I've experienced, and I know I sent you some things.
Absolutely.
I did send you some things because I like visual, and I think others like visual because it's a good way to break it up. But again, I did it only just as a visual. And I know you've done a lot of really good work, and I'll be honest with you. two of the best examples of Susan Alloway Ware's case, and for you and for me, and you'll see it when you bring it up. I named her case because we have an ability to do that. The Jack Rabbit Abduction Enigma, and I call it J Ray. J Rod, J Ray, whatever you want to call it. And I sent you something, and again, the whole idea is just to expose people to these different aspects of what we are from MUFON. So I don't know if you have the thing, and it's
No,
not
I
that I'm
haven't.
going to go through everything. Yeah, so
Well,
if you
I
could
will
bring it
edit.
up, I
I will
appreciate
edit some of it in,
it. Okay.
and I'll also probably cut in some shots of Susan with the Greys and on the
Oh,
road.
no, yeah,
Yeah,
cool. Are you
yeah.
able to bring it up at all?
Well, no, I will when I edit the show.
Okay, and again,
So
I
because
wasn't. You don't necessarily need to um, um, show it, but I broke down a number of cases and a number of not only Susan's case. There was a swarm case there that I called it, and there was the case involving the window, which is a very significant case. It's a case that we got besides Susan about a lady who is in her 60s now. She's actually a nurse practitioner. And the only reason why she reported it because she started hearing and seeing things, and she just thought, "Hey, has anybody else ever experienced anything like this?" From Los Angeles when she was a kid. She was taken when she was very young, 8 years old, out of her bedroom on a ship. They showed her around. They showed her the deck. They showed her a big window. She was able to look down. She wanted to go home.
I
You
love the
know,
big window.
yeah,
I
and
know
and
about the
so
big
in
window.
the stuff that I sent you, she ultimately drew a couple pictures for me. And the name of the case is The Window, but she drew a picture of what she saw. So it's in there and it's a pencil picture and she drew it. But then she had somebody create a CGI generated photo, which I thought was really cool. But it was this little girl's perception of the world when she was looking down and the window was sort of concaved out. So she even had to get up and look down and, she saw the earth and she couldn't believe that she was there. She thought it was incredible that what she was seeing. Of course, she wanted to go home. She wanted to be with her mommy. And there's a number of other experiences that she had, and she only really had that one, even though later she had some other psychic stuff and all that. But it's a very simple, good story. It's in there. And then the swarm one, which I think was a very good one. This happened out of Lakeside in San Diego County. This lady who was pregnant in '84 in her house with her husband, standard house, bedroom, living room, hallway, kitchen, back bedrooms, all that. And she woke up after they went to bed, and next thing you know, there's a light shining from outside into the house. And then she looks out of her bedroom door, which is right next to the living room, and there's the front window out to the street. But she saw the light come in to the house. And she said it was like, and we couldn't figure out what she was saying because of the way she was expressing it, but we came up with this idea of a swarm of fish or a swarm of swallows or a swarm of birds and how they interact and to become not just one little bird or fish, but then now they become a bigger aspect of each other and they're almost alive. And she said the swarm came in and it had all kinds of lights and it was alive and it looked like it was looking and searching. And even she said at one point that when the light came in, she telepathically heard from him, "I'm not here to harm you. Don't worry." And she said she watched as this light seemed to saunter in, look around, and light was a swarm of all kinds of light. And then eventually it went out and left, and she thought there was a craft above the house. Ironically, she said, I don't know where that came from, even though there were some other things. But then she told me, you know what? Now that we're talking, I remember when I was like 4 or 5, and I woke up scared for some reason in my bedroom that I had by myself. And all of a sudden, there was these red and blue pin lights all over my room, like 100 of them, and they were just swarming all around. And I was fascinated, and I thought, wow. And then after I thought about it, I got scared, called for my mom. She came, turned the light on, and they were gone. But that case is in the thing that I sent you, and I just thought, wow, what an experience! And this is what we find, especially with MUFON and the ERT team and the investigations that we do. 9 times out of 10, we find that they all have had contact since they were very young.
Yes, that's true.
Dolly Saffron, this is Preston Dennett's book that he wrote, Cemetery. She was in her crib when she had contact. Susan, by the way, if you remember, she had contact when she was very young, and she said she thought she saw somebody looking in the window of her bedroom back there in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she could have swore. And then she had some other encounters at the swing that she was at, in the tree that she loved. And but again, these ladies, the nurse that I'm telling you about, which is the window in the swarm, the common aspect or the commonality of them is that they've had these encounters, when they were young and they were youngsters. And of course, they thought they were dreams, or or they were either
That's natural. That's
too scared, and they put them away, they buried them, they forgot about them, and all that. But I just find it very fascinating when you do a good case study that there's so much evidence and so much memory that obviously if you can uncover it, and if it does come out, it just sort of validates all the experiences that these various people have gone through. So
and
you'll see that.
These people have never been in touch with each other. And so in many cases, this happened before there even was an internet, very little television. I mean, for me, it was 1958. I think I was 6 years old, and I was in San Francisco, and that's when the lights came in the room, started looking all around for me. And if you've seen my film, but something is there, it's the film begins with that. And we spent some money. We actually did a film production of my experiences because they couldn't get anyone else to do it, and if they did, they would have changed things around to make it Hollywood. I did not. I mean, the room was deathly silent. You couldn't hear anything, and I'm on 47th Avenue in San Francisco near Playland. Couldn't hear a pin drop.
Wow.
But I could hear my breathing. I could hear my heartbeat, and these lights were looking all around the room. And it went from there, and it kept happening. And so, yes, you're right. It usually begins in childhood, and at some point or other, they may be adults and be driving down a road, and they get stopped, their engine dies, whatever, and they have an experience, and they think that's their first experience because they don't remember the other stuff, or if they think about those things, like the way I did, I had these imaginary friends that would come and pick me up at night and take me into space.
Right.
And it wasn't until the 90s, until the 80s, that I started to put it together, because I'd see UFOs all the time, very close and very, very vividly.
Yeah. And, this is John Yost's story too. I mean, his was, the one who directed the Alien Abduction Answers documentary, really good movie that actually, Susan, that was the key after 38 years of reminding
That's right.
her.
And he passed away recently.
And it was the day, he did pass away. Yeah. But the point is, John had this imaginary friend who was like an Armatron or a Metatron, or one of those robot-looking things. But it was a screenshot. It was a screen image to help the impact of what they were seeing. But the thing I would like to ask, this is the thing that we get with a lot of people that I talk to and interview, and one of the things that is important is this idea of the alteredness of the state that people, because it's totally foreign for them. How come I can't hear anything? How come I'm focused on this? Why is it, that I go through a wall, or I'm in a light, or I wake up or for some reason, it was 9:30, 10 o'clock when I went to bed, and it's 3 o'clock, or how come I'm outside? How did I get outside?
Yeah, that's happened to me, and that's very disturbing.
Right. And so, our job is to listen. And the reason why it's good to investigate so many of these cases and read as much as you can, because you can actually give some peace and solace to folks that say, first of all, you're not by yourself. And I've learned a long time ago, especially people going through trauma and issues with their own life, when you realize that there's others who have experienced certain things, there's a certain amount of hope, because you're not the only one. It's just not me, or I'm not crazy, or
exactly.
Help me to understand, because we all need advisors or mentors or guides, or even buddies or friends who can help us rationalize or deal with. So I just thought that was really cool about the whole experiencer, you know, phenomena.
It is. It really is. It's it's something looking back on now I would not never change because I really like who I am as a result of my experiences and how I connect with all life and all consciousness around me. It's very comforting, but it still does happen to me. Just the other night, it happened. I had
Well, that's what I was going to
a,
ask.
a physical visit, and
I was going to
I
ask
don't.
that if you don't mind, because if I can play the little investigator. So this is the thing and this is the reason why it's important, because the answers or the information or the awareness of us continues to open up. So
Hmm.
you said you had an experience the other night.
Hmm.
Do you mind just being a little bit more specific? And
It's pretty simple. I generally know, and I'm not always right, but I had a feeling that night. I walked out in the back. I always look at the stars at night before I go to bed, and um, there was a sound I couldn't locate, and there was a feeling I couldn't define, except I was familiar with it, and I just had this feeling that something was going to happen. And a lot of people say, "Well, so you're just setting yourself up for it," but no, honestly, I knew Sunday night's kind of a favorite time for them too. Not always, but it can be. Um, when I woke up, or I guess it was a little after 3 o'clock in the morning, um, to use the bathroom. I could remember something, and I can only see a slight glimpse of it, a wall, some dark thing coming down, and I think there's someone there, but it just receded away from me. And when I tried to pry into it later, I heard, "Not now, you'll know later." But what I experienced was, and this has happened twice, is I had a pain in the corner of my eye, which I still have, right in here. Same eye as I had a couple of months ago, and I have this vivid memory of a needle going in there, and I can feel the tissue. And in a few days, it'll heal, and I won't I won't forget about it, but it won't hurt anymore. Uh, about a month before that, I woke up and there was someone standing over the bed, and they said, "Just routine maintenance, nothing to worry about. Go back to sleep." And out I went. About a month before that, I woke up, but I was sitting in like an auditorium with lots of other people, and I got the sense there was somebody on stage, but my attention was drawn to my right. I could see, and I did a painting of it, something I've never seen before, and it was what looked like a praying mantis, and it was looking right at me, and it said, "I know you can see me." And the next thing I knew, I I was back asleep again, and then when I woke up, I remembered that clearly. Um,
you did a painting of it.
yeah, I did. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Well,
so
I've done hundreds of paintings and drawings, starting back as far back as the '80s. And when I met Yvonne Smith, I did a lot for her, working with her clients, with her people, and then she put me under hypnosis many times, and she would ask me to illustrate what I recalled. So I've done a lot of uh, of art on the subject, but never a praying mantis. And I didn't get a good. Yeah, go ahead.
no, no, I'd be interested for you to. It'd be neat to show it on the show. Are you able? Would you be willing to show it?
I could show it now, and I'll
And
probably.
the only reason, one of the things I say, because I like seeing those pictures in the stuff I send you, the very first, yes. So the very first slide I sent you is the beginning of the presentation. And then there's the very last slide I sent you. If you pay attention, there's a rabbit there on
I
both the
saw the
slides.
rabbit. Yeah.
Right. So did you see how half the rabbit was a
Yes.
jackrabbit? So the last slide, I don't know if you looked at the last slide, is it's a little bit more detailed. But the reason why I even mention it because of yours, it's our interaction, and it's just incredible how um, it just sparks our world and our imagination. So that's actually a very, very detailed mantis. And so, have you had a lot of experience? It looks like a mantis. Is that what you say? You think it is?
Yeah, well, you notice there's no mouth because I really didn't. It was things were a little fuzzy, not terribly fuzzy, but they were, and I wasn't sure if there was a mouth there or not, so I didn't put one in.
Right. I
If I
mean, it's
don't,
a gray. It's very much a gray too, obviously, but it looks a lot
yeah,
like a mantis.
yeah, and from what I understand, they are mostly in charge in the sense that they monitor
Yeah.
when they have a large collection of experiencers together at one time. Um, we're all evidently under a state of hypnosis. So we're able to absorb the experience and what we're being taught, but the actual memory of it is encapsulated and you won't remember it until a certain time, if at all.
Right.
But it's a way of them controlling us because sometimes people wake up and they absolutely freak out and then they
Yeah.
become very dangerous to them.
Yeah.
So they use hypnosis. They're much better at it than we are because they put us deep,
Yeah.
but still we're still conscious. It
Yeah.
makes sense when you think about it. And
Well,
yeah, there's some kind of program going on, and
yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah. But it's a
yeah.
very, very. I just wanted to say, very creative. I drew both the pictures that you see in the
Hmm.
Jackrabbit
Oh,
one, and it was the irony. And I want to tell you before I got to Susan's thing from MUFON, I was in a MUFON meeting and I was thinking about Susan's thing, and I drew a jackrabbit, and then the following Zoom meeting that we had, I drew an alien, and then I thought because I was working on doing my presentation for the 2024 MUFON Symposium in Irving, Texas, and I saw a picture of something else, and I figured, well, let me merge them two, and
yeah.
and eventually, even with Susan, we created a T-shirt with from Utah because that's where the event happened.
I have the T-shirt. I was going to ask you
So,
about that.
so that I created that
Oh
as,
wow, I love that T-shirt.
as a
I
homage.
didn't know.
Well, because I also did the Utah MUFON presentation, and I wanted to send that to Dustin. But that shirt is MUFON. It's Utah colors. It's Utah State. It's an area. It's everything that as a respect to that. So when on the show that I have now with KGRA, it's called On the Precipice, which means we're on the cusp. Could be a good thing, a bad thing. But I drew that last rabbit that you'll see at the bottom of the PDF that I sent you, and it says on the precipice on the back. But the idea is exactly what you have done, and then obviously all the work of the gentleman, and I can't remember his name, who wrote the book about all the shapes and animals that have been representative of alien, extraterrestrial, or phenomena encounters with people, just to make them feel better. The one of my favorite, to be honest with you, that happens with me more than anything else is the one that you have behind you, and that's the owl. And
Oh yeah,
and the owl
yeah.
that I've had in many incidences, and so I've had a lot of experiences with it, but not as a phenomenon, I guess, but maybe as my own walk of spirituality and understanding and growth. So anyway,
I've had a lot to do with owls. That whole background, in fact, this whole background is something I created with CGI, not AI, CGI.
it's very
Um,
very cool.
I- have you ever seen my gray drawings?
I've seen some of them. I've also watched your the film that you did about your experience when you drove into
Okay.
the desert. Is the
Oh, you
one?
watched that one? Well, that was a stream of consciousness. The one you should watch is "But Something Is There." It's introduced by Whitley. It has Yvonne in it playing herself and a support group, but it's
Right.
actually a film about my experiences,
Well, you
and it
sent
doesn't
it
have.
to me, so I'm going to watch it.
Okay, this is.
Oh yeah.
I did this back in '93, and so I guess I started earlier than that with Yvonne. But I did this for Yvonne,
Oh wow.
and she wanted me to illustrate what they looked like, and I said, well, they look like stick people and they're painfully thin and they have these thin little necks,
Right.
and she says do it. And so and that kind of started the whole thing going with grays everywhere. During
Right.
the 90s they became prolific, but I did so
That's a
much work.
very good. But and again, this is just my belief. People who this is just me. If we allow ourselves, our passion, our creativity, the things that are inside, and we're able to express that, to me, that's another level of spiritual attunement. And what I mean
It
by
is.
that is it's you're allowing yourself to touch your idea of creation and what you think, and then through your emotions, and you ultimately manifest it and create it. That's us right on the cusp of finding and touching who we really are. And artists, I mean, again, another example of, I believe, how the spirit, the consciousness, even what we understand about the phenomenon, teaches us about who we really are, because that's who we really are. So,
Yeah. I think the
I,
artist you were talking about is David Chase. Am I correct? He put a book of illustrations out
you
of the
know what?
different
I
types
think it
of.
is him. It
Yeah.
is. That's
I know
exactly
David. I've known David for years.
great
And
book, and
yeah.
just it's amazing. And I will tell you, since the Susan case, because we think of this and that as we learn, we dive in deeper. Tremendous amount of rabbit oriented cases. So Dustin Elkelson, the Utah State Director, has a case that paralleled Susan's case about
Huh.
two Indian ladies who went on a trip, and during the course of their trip, they saw rabbits, and it led them to their own encounters. But it was the irony; it was near where Susan had her encounter, and there was so much similarities between the ship and the rabbits, even though Susan's goes back to Anza Borrego, which, for those of you who know, in Southern California, it's at a very large national park out in the eastern part of the Southern California desert. And by the way, MUFON has taken, I personally have taken many cases out there involving either contact or military stuff, because it's a big military area too.
Yeah,
29
it
Palms,
is.
29 Palms is north. San Diego, of course, is west. But amazing stuff about just rabbits or animals or owls or whatever. So I think it's really cool. The other irony is if you look at any of the spiritual work over the years, even the ancients, Egyptians, the Sumerians, the way that they use animals to represent certain things, the Horus, and about the Anubis, which was a dog, and a lot of people don't know the Anubis related to Horus or Ra. There's a dog in
Mhm.
Mexico called they call it Sochi or Suchi, and it's their little Mexican hairless dog.
Oh,
It's exactly looks like the Anubis, but it's just the fact of how it represents itself, in that way. So anyway, real cool stuff.
wow. So, what's on your plate right now? Do you have some fresh cases that you're working on?
So I do. I have a couple that I'm trying to reach right now. They're out of their experience happened in New Mexico, and they talk about a craft coming over their car and them getting out, and they were afraid. And next thing you know, they woke up. They hours later drove home, didn't speak, similar to Susan and Karen's encounter, and he wanted to report it. And his brother, who was the guy in the other side, didn't just denied any interaction. No, nothing ever happened. I'm
So
still
typical.
trying to. I'm still trying to get them and convince them to talk to me and open up a little bit more. And then some of the sightings that we've had. I have one here that we've gotten a lot of spheres and globes and orbs, and how they're interacting and how close they're coming down. And so that's one that I still haven't interacted. And then I have a couple that are out of your neck of the woods who have been having ongoing experiences with what he believes is his either spirit guides, or he calls them. It's a lot of shaman, Indian oriented. Maybe the way that he interacts is because his family is actually Cree Indian. I'm sorry, Crow
Oh,
Indian.
Crete. Yeah, because
No, I'm sorry.
Chumash are
I'm
local.
sorry.
Chumash are local to this
Right.
area.
So they're Cree, Cree,
Hmm.
Cree Indian out of Montana. I forget the name of the tribe up there, but he's had a number of interactions, and then he's trying to understand what they're trying to say. The other thing that happens as a result of this, there was a lot of other trauma that happened in his life, so you have to filter some of that out and get to what, because a lot of people who've had a lot of trauma because of their encounters have sort of masked it and layered it in other things and buried it. And so sort of unpack it takes a little bit more time. It doesn't happen overnight, especially if it's something that you've hidden because of fear or because of whatever, ridicule or insanity,
Yeah, the ridicule's the worst part of it, I think, but
yeah.
at least it used to be for me, and
Well,
I just
especially
don't.
from your own family,
Hmm?
especially from your own family. Not that they mean to do that, but
Well,
not
yeah,
you, but just in general. That's
I mean, it takes me back to Pacifica, California. I lived beneath a Nike base, and that was there. And when I went to high school, and I was, I found myself out on the porch at 3 in the morning in my underwear, and in looking up at the top of the hill above us and seeing this hat-shaped light. It was dead silent, usual thing. And I had my friend Mike, who was spending the night with me. He and I used to go up on his roof and we'd look for UFOs. We both had a fascination with him. I could not wake him up. I literally dragged him out there myself by grabbing his hands and got him wake enough to look at the thing. And he says, "Oh yeah," and he just like a zombie walks off back into the bedroom. And then my mom got mad and woke up and said, "Hey, I got to go to work in the morning. And what are you doing?" And just yelling at me and saying, "There are no UFOs. It's all, bullshit." And so um, the next morning, I'm sitting there at the breakfast table and she's not real happy about what happened. And then she throws a newspaper in front of me. And right there, a UFO had been seen and reported in the newspaper, the local newspaper. But she would never talk to me about it. And it wasn't until about 2 years before she died, she opened up because we hadn't
wow.
talked for 18 years and we didn't like each other very well. And she had seen me on television with Whitley and Roger Lear and Yvonne, and she saw me all over the place.
Right.
And when she told me that, I said, "Oh boy, here it comes." And she said, "No, it's not what you think." And then she told me about her more recent experience with my grandmother sitting on the porch. She had a ranch out on the countryside in Marin County, and she's described this dark circle moving across in front of the stars. She says, "I could see it because it was blotting out the stars, and then this light came out of it." And I did one of the episodes about it on the channel. And she says a light shone on both of them on the porch, and they got kind of unnerved, and they moved into the house, and the lights kept coming through the window then. And my mom went silent, and I asked her, "So what happened next?" And she says, "I don't know."
And you know what? It's funny that you say that because that's where I wanted to go. Because in 9 times out of 10 cases, you're generationally been abducted.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Mom, grandma,
Um,
and they don't want to admit it, or they forget it, or you stimulate something that they are afraid of. I don't want to talk about
that's
it,
right.
and then all of
Both
a
sides of
sudden,
the family. Both
well, that's what
sides
I'm
of my
saying.
family.
All of a sudden, when they get to a place wherever that is, and sometimes it's years, they feel a little bit more not comfortable, but maybe trusting to open up. And then all of a sudden, once they reveal that kind of stuff, it changes even the whole paradigm because, like you said, wow, this is a lot bigger and a lot more involved than we even realize.
Yeah, I was really hoping that she would have said you're just nuts and stuff. And when she told me what she told me,
Right,
any chance I had of this being something crazy just went away.
right.
And so, yeah, you should watch my movie, but something is there. I want it when we're done here. I will send you a link, an
Oh,
email.
please do
It,
that. I will.
it's easier to find, and we did it in 2018. I shot with a lot of the crew were from people I've worked with in Hollywood and big movies over the years, and they all volunteered their time to help make this film, and
Wow.
it turned out very well. Yeah.
I'd really like to see it. Again, to be honest with you, another book, movie, documentary that I can actually view that contributes to my own knowledge and understanding of something that, unlike you, you know, even though I may not have remembered or even had any encounters, I still live it. I still try to understand it, especially in my work as an investigator, because that's what you try to do. You try to immerse yourself into what people are saying so that you can understand it on another perception level, another sensory level, so that you can really get an idea. And a lot of times these sort of things like your film will fill that in for me, and so I really appreciate you sending that to
Oh,
me.
sure. Well, it's like what Philip Mantle said to me the last time we had a conversation on the show. He said he's never had experience himself, and he would love to, but the next best thing is to work with people who have. And
I agree totally.
yeah, no, he's amazing. So, uh, wow. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's really nice to get to meet you this way. I'm hope we get to see each other in person at some time. And
Well,
you
I've
know, of
known
course,
about you from Earl, to be honest with you. I knew about you from Susan, and then just seeing in the books and the movies, and even the documentary. So I really feel blessed to have spent this time talking to you. And the good thing about it, especially for your audience, not everybody necessarily has to be an abductee or an encounter, but there's most of us, or a lot of us, who have a fascination about life and an exploration about life on multiple levels. And we know this stuff is real because of our own experiences, our own encounters, because the consciousness and the whole idea of who we are is a much bigger thing than just, quite frankly, religion or the phenomenon in terms of extraterrestrial, because ultimately, I believe we're the phenomenon. I believe we're here to experience the things that we're experiencing, to open our awareness as to who we really are, and just share it with each other. So, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I would absolutely have to agree with that. And you will have to come to the studio up here sometime
I would
if you
love
get
it.
in this area so you can see some of the Star Trek stuff I have.
I would love to see that. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, I was lucky to work on Star Trek more than once and get to know Gene Roddenberry, and I actually got to do Leonard Nimoy's ear, so that was a big thrill for me
I
in my
like the
career.
one where you sat in the chair.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
like that one.
that's a faithful recreation, and that big Enterprise behind me is I built from scratch. So that
I would really like
it's
to
all there.
experience that one day,
Yeah,
maybe, huh?
yeah, absolutely.
Very nice. Nice meeting you, Steve.
Richard, nice meeting you too, and thanks so much for being on the show.
Hey, thank you very much. And, you never can tell. We have a show called On the Precipice, MUFON Contact Radio, and we're recording with CJ Arabia and I. And maybe we'll have Steve Neal over there just to share his insights and his encounter and his uh, abduction experience along with his life and how he's been able to express it. So it would really be nice, to be honest with you.
That'd be great. I can do that.
All
That'd be an
right,
honor.
buddy.
All
Hey,
right.
thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
All right.
Richard. Thank you.
Bye bye.